coming out on the same ballot where you'll appear are Amendments 5 and 6, which deal with the redistricting process. This organization, Concerned Taxpayers, after heated debate, I might say, has gone along with the League of Women Voters, the NAACP, and a number of other groups, practically, if not every newspaper in the state, in agreeing that Amendments 5 and 6 would be a good thing to at least attempt. Your opponent has actually filed a lawsuit opposing Amendments 5 and 6, apparently alleging that there's a racist motivation behind them. What's your position on those two amendments, and how do you feel about gerrymandering in general?
Well, as you said, Representative Brown has come out in direct opposition to the Fair Districts amendments. Her motivation behind that is, I believe that she's afraid that she's actually going to have to run a race to get elected, in which she really has to campaign and stand on her record as it is today, which in my personal opinion is very dismal in terms of what she's done legislatively and what she's actually done for the people that live in this district. Gerrymandering is not a good thing as far as I'm concerned, but yet you see it happening all over the nation. Our Constitution was very clear that it left establishing legislative districts, state and federal, in the hands of our legislators. To put guidelines forth may or may not be a good thing. There's pros and cons on both sides of the argument. Some will argue that the judges will end up drawing the district lines. Other people say that we would rather our legislature draw it. At this point in time, I've taken no real position on that issue, and I will continue not to take a position on it, because I think it's going to be up to the voters to determine for themselves what they need to do. The voters need to become very educated on those two amendments before they cast their ballot, yes or no. And that's exactly what I think that people need to do, more than just say, oh yeah, it's a great idea, but study the pros and cons before you cast your ballot, one way or the other.
Okay, thank you. Joe?
Let's turn to the economy. That's my favorite subject.
One of mine too, Joe.
What's your position on the fair tax?
The fair tax could very well and very easily be the economic solution to this nation. And the reason that I say that is this. Any time that you uncouple taxes from a person's income, that the fair tax does, you create automatic incentives for people to earn more money. In other words, the entrepreneurial spirit of the American citizen really and truly can come into play with the fair tax. Because what it does, it eliminates all taxes on income, all payroll taxes, and it becomes a revenue neutral tax system. You're only going to be taxed on what you spend for new goods and services, not used goods and services. If you want to go buy a new car, it's a $50,000 automobile, and it's brand new sitting on the showroom floor, and you just have to have it, under the fair tax you're going to pay a 23% sales tax is what you're going to pay. Well, what people don't want to tell you is that because we've removed all income taxes, personal and federal, there's approximately a 22% embedded tax already in those goods. It's going to pull that embedded tax out of the price. So what you're going to pay for that thing that's sitting in there on the showroom floor that you just have to have, with the fair tax added into it, is going to be approximately the same price that it is today. There's not going to be a tremendous amount of difference. And another thing about the fair tax is because of the way that it is set up, everybody, all monies that they spend at or below the poverty level in terms of the fair tax will be prebated to them at the beginning of every month, so that anything for the necessities of living, food, shelter, clothing, medicine, will not be taxed. You're going to get the taxes that you would have paid on that in advance each and every month. Now, what does this do for us on an economic level? This has been one of the most heavily studied tax proposals ever. Independently, over $20 million has been spent to determine what the financial and economic impact of this nation would be. During that period of time, they surveyed companies from all over the world to ask what would happen if the United States enacted the fair tax. Over 60% of the companies worldwide said the next factory or the next plant that we put in would be right in the United States of America, because all of a sudden we're a tax haven. There's no capital gains taxes, there's no death taxes, there's no dividend taxes, there are no other taxes other than a national sales tax.
The beauty of that is that it brings to this country and to our shores the types of jobs that really and truly built the middle class. Those being the manufacturing jobs, the natural resources jobs, the agricultural jobs that we need to not just grow an economy, but those are the sources of prosperity in this nation. What we are fast becoming is a service economy. A service economy does not generate wealth. All it does is move money from one segment to the other and back again. So there's nothing generating a wealth base in this country, a prosperity base. This is what we've got to have in this country in order to turn this economy around, because we are losing the very segments that made our nation great: manufacturing, natural resources, and agriculture.
Very good.
Right.
Yeah, you really touched, everyone's talking about the economy, and it boils down to one word: jobs.
Jobs.
And the jobs don't come from the General Motors, it comes from the small business.
Exactly.
How do you implement, how do you energize that real answer to the economy?
Well, it gets back into the basic things. In any nation that you go into, there's really only three ways to generate wealth. You're either going to grow it in your agriculture industry, you're going to use the natural resources of this earth, extract it from the ground, timber, forestry, these types of things, and then you're going to turn those natural resources into manufactured goods. Here's the problem. We're paying farmers today to not grow crops. That makes no economic sense to me. The environmentalists tell us that we cannot use our own natural resources because we're destroying our environment, but yet so many of these are renewable resources, particularly in our timber. And if you look in our coal mining industry, they say, well, you're stripping the tops of mountaintops. Well, you have to go to West Virginia to understand that the tops of these mountains are totally useless. There's nothing there. There's nothing that lives there in terms of wildlife or anything else. They're actually turning much of this land into usable land. I can give you a specific example. There's a school built in West Virginia on the very top of a mountain that was stripped off to extract the coal that was underneath the ground, and it made it a usable land. One of the most modern high schools in the state of West Virginia. It was built on reclaimed land that is required by law to be done, is reclaim it back to as close to its original contour as it can be. So now we have usable land. Where's our manufacturing sector? It's overseas. It's going to China. It's going to India, Indonesia, Malaysia. We have no real, true, genuine heavy manufacturing industries in this country anymore. The fair tax will bring those back. Once we've done that, then we've created the type of jobs that people need that built this middle class, and that is our manufacturing jobs. Back in the 50s and the 60s, people could come out of high school, go to work in a factory somewhere, in a manufacturing facility, and they could make the kind of income that it would take to put their kids through school, to buy their cars, to buy their homes, to do whatever they really and truly wanted and live that American dream, if you will, of a middle-class America. We are destroying those jobs today. We've got to bring here in the state of Florida, because we've been dependent on three sectors, three different things: tourism, agriculture, and construction. We have no real manufacturing base here in Florida, and there are all kinds of companies that would love to come here, but we've created a regulatory environment and a tax environment in which they're not really welcomed, if you will. We don't have any type of economic development fund in which we can pay companies to come here in the state of Florida. What we've got to do is create what I call enterprise zones throughout this congressional district. This overcomes many of the regulatory hurdles that we have here in the state, because we've designated these areas as places we would like you to come, locate your small factory, locate your high-tech manufacturing company, put it right here. All you got to do is make one decision. Do you want to come? And if we've done a good job on a state, federal, and local level to bring these in, we're going to create the kind of jobs that we can pull people out of poverty, particularly here in this district. And we've got more than just those three areas of tourism, construction, and agriculture here in Florida. This is what we've got to do to grow jobs here in this state. Face it, we've got the greatest weather in the world. We have no income tax. We have a very reasonable sales tax here in the state of Florida compared to some states like New York State, Michigan, some of the others. Everything is in position in this state that businesses would want to locate here, with that one exception of regulatory and tax hurdles that we as legislatures really need to make sure we overcome. Government cannot create jobs. It can only create the environment that businesses want to locate, and then jobs are created on the private sector.
Thank you.
The government of Great Britain has just proposed an austerity program, cuts of up to 1/3 in government spending. Even the Queen is going to take a 14% cut